There is a train car in Tokyo at 8 in the morning, standing room only. Hundreds of commuters pressed close together for the 20-minute ride into the city center. If you rode that train every day for a year, you would notice something almost immediately once it was pointed out to you. Almost no one smells like anything. Not unwashed, not neutral in an unpleasant way, just quiet. No cologne cloud following someone down the aisle. No perfume lingering after a person exits at the next stop. Meanwhile, somewhere else right now, someone steps into an elevator that still carries the ghost of the last person's cologne 3 floors later, or sits 2 seats away from a coworker whose perfume announces itself before the person does. Same basic human habit, wanting to smell good. Completely different cultural relationship to how much scent belongs in a shared space. What if the gap between these two approaches has almost nothing to do with hygiene standards, and almost everything to do with 7 specific fragrance habits that read as considerate in one culture and inconsiderate in another? By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what those 7 habits are and why a term now exists in Japan specifically to describe when Western-style fragrance use crosses a line most Japanese people were taught to respect from childhood. Before we get into the specifics, it's worth naming the real term at the center of this entire conversation. The real Japanese term, Kaori Hara, literally fragrance harassment. A term that entered common use in Japan over the past decade to describe strong scent, whether from perfume, cologne, fabric softener, or scented products imposed on people in shared spaces who never consented to smelling it. This isn't a fringe complaint. Japanese companies have published internal guidelines asking employees to limit fragrance use at work. Train operators have run public awareness campaigns, and surveys have found that a majority of Japanese respondents report being bothered by someone else's strong scent in public within the past year. The underlying principle, meiwaku wo kakenai, not imposing a burden on others, applies to scent exactly the way it applies to noise, physical space, and time. Something a Western nose might read as pleasant self-expression, a Japanese nose is far more likely to read as an imposition nobody asked to carry. The first habit is applying fragrance directly to skin in generous amounts, spraying 2 or 3 times on the neck, wrists, and chest, the way perfume is often marketed and demonstrated in Western department stores. In Japan, the far more common approach, when fragrance is worn at all, is a single light application, often to clothing rather than skin, specifically because skin retains and amplifies scent as body heat rises throughout the day. A habit that feels like appropriate application in one culture reads as significant overapplication in the other, not because the amount was measured differently, but because the cultural baselines for how much is too much starts from a completely different place. The second habit is wearing strong fragrance to work in an office with shared, often poorly ventilated air conditioning systems. Western office culture frequently treats personal scent as a private choice with no real public dimension. Japanese offices increasingly treat it as a shared air issue, functionally similar to smoking indoors, something that affects everyone breathing the same recirculated air regardless of whether they consented to it. Several major Japanese corporations have issued explicit fragrance guidelines to employees in the past several years, treating strong personal scent as a workplace consideration on par with volume of a voice or personal space. The third habit is using heavily scented laundry products, fabric softeners, and detergents. specifically marketed in Western markets for how strongly and persistently they scent clothing, sometimes for days after washing. This category has become one of the most frequently cited sources of Kaori Hara complaints in Japan, precisely because the person wearing the clothing often can't smell it themselves anymore, having become noseblind to a scent that lingers powerfully for everyone around them. Japanese laundry product marketing tends to emphasize the absence of lingering scent as a selling point, the exact inverse of how many Western products are marketed. The fourth habit is wearing fragrance to enclosed, prolonged contact spaces, specifically elevators, packed trains, small meeting rooms, movie theaters, spaces where other people have no ability to create distance even if the scent bothers them. In open outdoor spaces, scent dissipates quickly and rarely becomes a shared burden. In Japan's densely packed urban transit systems, where physical proximity to strangers for extended periods is simply a daily reality, the calculation around fragrance shifts considerably because there is no possibility of stepping away. The fifth habit is treating strong fragrance as a signal of professionalism or put-togetherness, the assumption that a client meeting or job interview calls for noticeably wearing cologne or perfume as part of looking polished. In Japanese professional culture, the equivalent signal of polish is almost always the complete absence of any noticeable scent. Cleanliness read through the absence of odor rather than the presence of a chosen one. A habit intended to signal effort and respect in one culture can read as a lack of consideration for others in the other. The sixth habit is layering multiple scented products simultaneously: scented shampoo, scented body wash, scented lotion, scented deodorant, and then perfume or cologne on top, each individually mild, but combining into something far stronger than any single product alone. This is common in many Western personal care routines without much awareness of the cumulative effect. Japanese personal care marketing, by contrast, frequently emphasizes muhosho, literally unscented or fragrance-free, as a primary selling feature across an entire product category, from laundry detergent to skincare to hair care, precisely because the cumulative layering effect is well understood as a real phenomenon worth designing against. The seventh and final habit is dismissing a fragrance complaint when one is actually raised as oversensitivity rather than legitimate feedback. In cultures where personal scent is treated as an individual right with minimal social cost, a complaint about someone's perfume can be received defensively, as an attack on personal choice rather than useful information. In Japan, where meiwaku wo kakenai is instilled from early childhood as a foundational social value, a complaint about imposing an unwanted scent on others is generally received the way a complaint about talking loudly on a quiet train would be, not as an attack on identity, but as accurate feedback about an unintended burden. As you've seen, the gap between these two cultural approaches to fragrance has very little to do with hygiene and everything to do with where the line gets drawn between personal expression and shared space. Consideration. Apply fragrance lightly. Understanding skin amplifies scent through the day. Treat shared office air as a collective consideration, not just a personal choice. Choose laundry products for their absence of lingering scent rather than its presence. Recognize that enclosed, prolonged contact spaces change the calculation around wearing fragrance at all. Signal professionalism through cleanliness rather than noticeable scent. Watch for the cumulative effect of layering multiple scented products. and receive fragrance feedback as useful information rather than a personal attack. None of this means fragrance itself is the problem. It means the amount, the place, and the willingness to hear feedback about it are the actual variables that separate consideration from imposition. If this changed the way you think about your own fragrance habits, please like this video and subscribe so we can continue unlocking this kind of practical cultural insight together. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 habits do you think is most common where you live? Leave it in the comments below. Until the next video.